Castlevania Symphony of the Night is one of the foundational games that created the Metroidvania genre, and it's always a good sign when you create something so good it spawns an entire genre. So there are a lot of different games to choose from with all sorts of different types, themes, playstyles. It's a bit hard to really find the ones that hit the peaks that Symphony of the Night does. So I picked games that I think will bring something new, and in some cases, something old with a good mix of everything in between. So let's get started where everything began. Super Metroid is on the other side of the Metroidvania coin, and it would be wrong not to mention it. Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night are often mentioned as the pillars of Metroidvania, and for good reason. Super Metroid is the third game in the Metroid series, and the first and last game in the series for Super Nintendo. In fact, it was the last Metroid game for the next 8 years, until the release of Metroid Fusion and Metroid Prime. Super Metroid has a ton of exploration, power-ups, which allow you to move to new areas, and has all sorts of secrets and hidden paths to discover. Also, including multiple different endings. So for any fan of Symphony of the Night, this is a game that I would highly recommend. It isn't just like a history lesson or something like that. It's a game that actually holds up very well decades later. If you want a modern take on Symphony of the Night, the best place to go is from one of the men who made it. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is a game by Koji Igarashi, who was assistant director on Symphony of the Night and led Konami's Castlevania series after that, from 2001's Castlevania Chronicles to 2010's Harmony of Despair, which is like this multiplayer thing. When I think of Castlevania, I think of Koji Igarashi, so it would only make sense to play his spiritual successor. Bloodstained takes a lot of the mechanics from Symphony of the Night and iterates on them, including the equipment system, different styles of combat based on the weapons that you have. It puts it into a 2.5D style that looks really nice, actually. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night not only took what was learned in Symphony of the Night, but also took from every Castlevania game after and created something new and fun that I think every Symphony of the Night fan should experience. Ender Lilies Quietus of the Nights was one of the surprising indie games that really pulled a lot from Symphony of the Night and its formula and made it into something new and fun. Ender Lilies is a bit less complicated in terms of systems, and it's also a little bit shorter, so for anyone looking for a bit more of a bite-sized version of Symphony of the Night, this would be a great choice. It focuses a lot on giving you a very dark and foreboding atmosphere, contrasting sharply with the main character herself, which is this very bright figure. It has a very high-quality combat system that you slowly become more familiar with over the course of the game, and obviously it also features bosses that have multiple phases that will keep you on your toes. So it's a very high-quality Metroidvania that also has a sequel, which is already highly rated in its early access. And speaking of bite-sized, a record of Lotus War, Deedlit, and Wonder Labyrinth could have easily just been a quick cash grab based on its licensed IP, but it somehow came out a very well-polished and fun game, though it's a bit short. It's like 7 hours for a single playthrough. Some people finish it even quicker than that, but it also has very high-quality sprite work, fun combat, and a really good soundtrack, with a lot here that is very reminiscent of Symphony of the Night. Record of Lotus War isn't a big investment in terms of time or money, so I definitely recommend giving this one a try. Blasphemous is an indie game that, according to the developers themselves, was highly influenced by Castlevania, and specifically Symphony of the Night. In some ways, it definitely shows, and Blasphemous takes things down an even darker path. It has a lot of grim and violent imagery, which makes sense due to the name, but also has a lot of beauty in the art style and the various environments that you go through. Blasphemous differs a lot from Symphony of the Night in its equipment system, in that it doesn't allow you to change weapons at all. Instead, you unlock new abilities. It has all the other things you would expect in a Metroidvania, including exploration bosses and some very difficult challenges. Hollow Knight is one of those games that I feel like I could recommend for people that like a lot of different games, mostly because it's just that good. For Symphony of the Night fans, it has a lot of what you enjoyed, from a sprawling area of different locations to explore, tough bosses, a lot of secrets to find, all sorts of little hidden paths and things like that. It also doesn't have any sort of equipment system, but the combat has a lot of similarities. Above all, Hollow Knight is a beautiful experience from start to finish, and has left most people who played it praying that they'll finally get a release date on its sequel. The tightness of the gameplay really allows you to express yourself, and you'll definitely need to in order to beat some of the bosses, because they can be really difficult. And obviously, you can't talk about games like Symphony of the Night without mentioning other games in the Castlevania series. But since most people would probably go there first, I'll just say that if you haven't played any of the handheld Castlevanias, you're definitely doing yourself a disservice. Luckily, there are now 2 collections of these that are on PC, so if you want to play them, you can easily access the Castlevania Advance Collection and the Castlevania Dominus Collection, which are all games by Koji Igarashi that play very similarly to Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and are well worth your time if you want more of that style of game. They're both on Steam. Highly recommended, not overly expensive, considering that in each collection you're getting 3 full games in one of them, and 4 full games in the Advanced Collection, because it also includes Dracula X. So, that's it. If you have any other recommendations, feel free to post them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.